Hi everyone, I'm here today to share something very exciting. It's my first Graphic 45 brand ambassador project. For our first project, we were asked to make a project which is a self-portrait and tells you something about us as a crafter. So this is the project I've come up with. And what makes this me? Well, my projects are designed to be, or they're measured to get the most out of your papers, but also to fit standard sized photos. So my little album uses an 8x8 pad. I used Let It Be. There we go. And I still have all this left, so I probably could make another one. And as I said, I use it economically. I work on my pages and things to get the most out of my paper. I made a project a while ago called my Arthur Folio. And in my mind, I've always had this idea of making a rolling up version where it all opens out. And it's the same sort of elements, but built like this instead. And I've tried it using chipboard and tape and spines, and I just didn't get it right. But then I saw this spine method, the soft spine with a nice curve, done by Cal Summers in her vintage book. And it's really nice and different way of doing it. So the first time I've had a go at doing it like this, and it was perfect for what I wanted. So Cal Summers, thank you very much for that. So what does the book do then? It opens up, and then it opens up again. So you've got 4 spaces. Oh, I still need to add some pieces in there. So let's look at page 1 and 2 first. These open up, and as I said, it's all designed to hold 6x4 photos. So when you open it up, it slides out, and you've got room for 6x4 photos to go inside there. Now, I have got the 6x4 journal cards from this kit, just to show you where they fit. So your 6x4 photo would fit there, there, and a couple on the back. But just to add extra, it opens up and you've got room for 2 more photos inside on both of them. So you've got space for 8 photos in this first pouch. And then you just slide together and you just pull them together using the folio closure. And then we've got a nice, just a deep pocket here where you can slide photos in. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Well, there's 10 in there and there's still space. So you can fit at least 10 photos into that pocket. So we're up to 18 photos. And then this then is the back of our spine. And then this opens up. And this is one of my flip books. So we've got lots of photo opportunities here. Again, for our 6x4 photos, we just stick them right in. So if you've given these to somebody who's not an album maker, they'll be able to just use it straight off. So there's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. There's space for 12 photos there again. So what do we have? 8, 10, and 12. And then here, there's probably room for over 10 again here. So it opens up and you can just pile all your photos in there. So there's 11 in there and still plenty of space for more. So I'd probably say you can probably get about 15, 30, 42 and 8, about 50 photos into this small album. So there we go. Oh, let's have a look at the spine and then the back, just sort of bringing it all together. So that is my Let It Be soft spine book. The 4 elements inside are all the same thickness or the same depth. So that means this project can be a bit of a mix match, pick and mix type project where you can choose whichever of the 4 you want to put them in any order that you like. So this is my first Gothic 45 project. If you want to see some of the other brand ambassador projects, if you look for the hashtag G45 Express or Expression, I'll write it down and you'll see it in the comments below. You'll see what the others have come up with. But if you'd like to have a go at this, I'm going to show you exactly how. So I'm ready to start my project now. So what I've done is I've printed out a cutting guide. Now, if you want the cutting guide and you prefer to have a piece of paper with the measurements in front of you, if you go onto Facebook and join Paper Crafting with Paul, you'll be able to find in the file section the Let It Be soft spine album cutting guide. So that's just a little bit of extra help. I've also got my Let It Be papers. So I've chosen one for my cover, one for the back cover, and I've chosen this one for the spine, which is actually the reverse of that one. Now in the cutting guide, it says to cut some grey board at 2 pieces at 6.5 by 4.5. And I've already done that here. And we're going to just do a regular album covering method. So I'm just going to cut this little strip off. So it's 1.5 inches extra. So I'm going to cut this at 6 inches. And that is going to give me enough cardstock to cover, or paper to cover my grey board. So that's the front. I might as well do the back while I'm here. And 6. So these pieces are 8 by 6. So I've got some strong tape here. And I'm going to take my grey board pieces and take some tape just around the edges. There we go. And let's do the other one as well. Last little piece there. I'm now going to take off all the tape, or the backing from the tape, to expose the adhesive, and I then take some strong glue. I've got the Cosmic Shimmer acrylic glue here. It's a dries clear. So it's really good for when I'm doing my album. So if I've got a bit of spillage, I'm just going to apply a little bit all over. And then I turn my paper. So this is not the side I want. I'll want that side showing. Excuse me. And then I'm just going to eyeball this down into the center. Now you could measure I need to make sure it's perfectly straight, but I'm just gonna go for it. Turn over. Just gonna take my Teflon tool, and what I'm doing is smearing that glue underneath to get some contact all over. So that's my front cover. So I'll give that a chance to dry whilst I do my other one. So again, just applying glue, just all over, not too much. You don't want it soaking wet. And so move this that way up. Not that it makes a difference right now because I can flip it. Just place it down in the center. I'm going to smear that glue all over. There we go. So now what I want to do is cut off the corners. Now when you cut off the corners, you don't want to take a scissors and cut up to your grey board corner, because when you fold it around to cover this, you'll have some exposed areas there. So you want to cut it and leave about 1/8 of an inch there. But you can buy some clever tools. So I'm going to use mine. Mine is the Cool Cats stainless steel corner cover tool. And you put it in there and it'll give you just that little extra bit of space there. And being stainless steel, I don't need a pencil and marking or anything. I can just go straight. And you see what it's done is left a little space between the edge, the corner of the cards, grey board and your cardstock. Let's do the same for the other side. So 3 and 4. We can put that on the side. I can put my cutting mat aside. Actually, I'm going to keep my cutting mat for the next bit. With the 2 long bits, what I'm going to do is just tease it over and fold it. So I'm sort of training my cardstock or my papers to go around. And then I'm going to do the same on the small sides or the shorter sides. So I'm going back to my tape and I'm going up to the edge of my paper on all 4 sides. And around the edge of my grey board too. Take my Teflon tool, just burnish it on, because what you find is if it hasn't stuck down properly, when you peel it, it just tears the grey board. I'm going to start on my long edges. So I'm going to expose my tape, and I'm going to take some glue, just run it along those diagonal bits and down into that gutter so that it sticks to the edge of my grey board later. And I'll just add some more there. And then, keeping it nice and tight, so I've now squeezed that glue onto the spine of the grey board and over. And I can press it down. I'll do the same on this side. We'll need to expose it first. let's do the diagonals and integrate it. So what you want to make sure is you're not covering this as well, otherwise you're not going to be able to peel it off later. So if you want, you can take off all 4. Just be careful then when you're coming down that you don't press that onto your table or onto your mat. There we go. So we've done the 2 sides. Now what you'll find is some little overlap here because of that extra bit here. So you're going to take your bone folder and you're just going to squeeze it down. And squeeze it down again. This is what's going to hide the corner of your grey board. So now we can do the short edge. And you'll see that there is no grey board showing in any of the corners. And the last one. Over we go. And then just burnish it down. And that is your front corner, excuse me, my voice is going today, covered in that lovely Let It Be paper. So I'm going to do the other one. So this time now, I've shown you what I've done, so I'm going to do it a little bit quicker. So I'm just going to sort of start training these 4. You take your tape around. So I do my 2 long ones first. And then my middle ones. So I do my long ones first, so when I fold them over, I'm not covering that tape. If I did the shorter ends first, the tape from this would be there, and then when I cover it, it'll be caught underneath. And then around. Okay. We'll do the long ones first. Get some glue down the diagonals and in that gutter. Fold it over. On the diagonals, down that channel. And over. Then flatten out those 4 corners. And let's go. First short edge. And the back cover is also done. So we can put them aside whilst we make our spine. So the next part said is going to be our spine. Now originally I was going to use the Sweet as Can Be for the spine. Now bear in mind, this is your front and back cover. This will be showing then, whatever pattern you have will be going around there. But I thought it just looked a bit too pale. And then I pulled out the Let It Be one. And I'm going to be cutting in half at 4. And then I realised that actually that queen bee would end up in the middle, or Let It Be. So we're going to find out which one will look the best in a second. So I'm going to cut off that top piece, and I'm going to cut my paper at 6.5 inches tall. So that is the same as my covers, and then cut it in half at 4. What we're going to do, we're going to glue these back to back just to add some extra strength. So I need to make sure I get right up to the edge, otherwise my spine will start to come undone, which you don't want to happen. And not thinly smeared, but you do want a good coverage as well. Of course, you could just stick this onto some black cardstock if you wanted to save some paper. But this way, you'll have your papers showing on the outside and on the inside. So I'll show you on my practice one. So you'll have one paper shown there, but when you open, you will have whatever you've stuck on the back in there. So that's why I did it like this. Okay. We're going to bring our scoreboard. Now normally I'd leave that to dry just a little bit more, but I think I just want to get on with the tutorial for now. We're going to score now to create a curving cover. Now if I go down there, I'm going to cut off there. So let's have a look. Come down 1 and 3. They're neither central. So you're going to score to 1 inch. And remember, you're going through 2 pieces of paper and that glue. So I'm doing quite a few runs, but not pressing too hard at any time. And then I'm going to score every 1/4 inch. So 1 1/4, 1 1/2, 1 3/4, 2, all the way until I get to 3. There we go. And I'm going to repeat it. Actually, what I'm going to do is flip it that way. So if my cutting was slightly off, the channels are still in the same place. So it's quite easy on this board because it's just all the black ones. And I'm going to do it again. So really getting those creases in to the cardstock. And now the last one I did had this facing down. This is the one I'm going to have on my outside, I think. So my creases on my score lines have got sort of the mountain, the raised ridge. And what I'm going to do is fold the 2 outers just gently, like so. So I've got the U shape, and then just roll the others so you get a little curve. There, I'll let it be, has fitted in nicely there. And then we're just going to glue the front on. So let's grab some tape. So I'm just going that big 1 inch piece glue. So the tape holes are there for now, but the glue just adds a longer lasting adhesion. So I'm going to fold that piece and we're just going to glue it on. There we go. Let's grab my tool again. And the other side too. Which way up do these go? Yeah, the red flowers at the top. Oh, they both go, so there is no correct way. So just up to that score line. And burnish. And that is your cover complete. Now you might find you've got this white edge here, and I should have done it before really. You can take some black soot distress ink. If I'd spotted before, I would have done it. So the white paper, the white core doesn't show. And you can even take some of the black soot and you can work it into those grooves if you wanted a more vintage feel, especially if you're using browns and stuff, cream your cards, you can make it look really vintage. Okay, let's just tease it into that round position. And that is our cover already made. And you could fill this then however you want, just treat it as a normal folio, building on the two harder covers. So I'm going to set that aside, allow it to dry, and we're going to get it on with our pages and our folio pockets. So I've got my cutting guide out now, ready to put the pages. So it tells us the first thing we're going to do is cut 2 pages. Now there's a typo here, so don't ignore that. We're going to do it 9 5/16 by 6 1/4. So it's going to be 6 1/4 tall. That 1/4 inch allows us to put then our 6 by 4 photos in. Now I have got both, I think, my cardstock pieces at the same time. There we go. By 9 5/16. Now, it may sound quite strange and complicated. Don't panic. When I worked it out with an 1/8, it just wasn't quite right. I needed to go down that extra 16th. Otherwise, the book just bowed out. So, just make it easier. 9 3/8 would be here. And I'm just going back one little tiny notch. So it's just less than 9 3/8 if you're not used to the 16ths. So there's the 2 pages done. And they're both identical. It's quite nice and easy. We're going to score then at 4 1/4. Rotate it around and do 4 1/4 again. And the same here, 4 1/4 and 4 1/4. So put our scoreboard to the side, and we're just going to fold these 2. And a gentle burnish, doesn't need to be a hard fold this time. because we just want that 90 degrees rather than 180 flat score. So gentle burnish and gentle burnish. And when you put these into your book, you'll want the spines facing out so that your book opens that way. So let's bring back the cover. So one's going to go here and one's going to go here. And then they're going to close up like so. But if you wanted to do a ribbon tie, you'll need to put your ribbons in now. So I've got a bit of black ribbon here, just some plain black satin ribbon. I'll be adding something to tidy up the edges later on. So let's put some tape. Let's bring in my ruler. So when I place it down, both edges will be in line. There we go. So that's just for closing, and I'll just put some tape over the edges as well, although my pages are going to hold it all down anyway. It's just a bit of extra assurance that the tape, there is tape holding it down as well. Okay, so let's bring in the pages. So I want to do this one. So normally I would do 4 sides, but just to speed up the video, I'm just going to do the 2. Plenty of glue. And just remember where your spine actually is, because these pages are 1/4 inch shorter than your cover pieces. I'll do the same on this side. Now if you do put the tape on what you think is the wrong side, don't panic, you just turn it around. Just make sure you've got your spine facing outwards. That's the only important piece here. So just folding it up so I can see exactly where the spine is. There we go. And then your book will just close up like so. And from now on, it's up to you what you're going to do. I'm going to show you 4 different pouches here. And you could do all 4 like this, all 4 like this, 2 like this, and just double them up. Anyway, it's kind of a mix and match project. Okay, so I'm just going to put this to the side and grab my cutting guide and cardstock again. So you are ready for page 1. Now page 1, like I say, is the most complicated one. Not that it's hard or anything, but it's just a bit trickier than the others. So we'll get this one out of the way. So it's a slider page. When you open up, you've got room for 6x4 photo, and you've got room for 2 more there, and one on the back, and the same on the bottom one. And they slide in together. Now I do need to add the string closure to this one, to my mock-up. I haven't done the closure because you will need a string one here to pull them together. I'll show you another alternative as well. Okay, so let's go to our cutting guide. So the first thing we're going to do is cut the pouch that they slide into. And the pouch is 5 3/4 by 5 1/2. I knew there's something wrong. I was reading the wrong part. By 6 1/4. So 5 3/4 by 6 1/4. I was reading page 2. Page 1 is there. So that's our piece for the pouch. Then slider 1. Now we're going to 4 3/16 again. 4 1/4 is what would slide in. But if you did that, everything would catch. It wouldn't quite fit in because you're fitting a 4 1/4 piece of cardstock into a 4 1/4 pouch. So by making it just that 1/16, just a tiny fraction less, you're just giving some give each side so it falls in and slides in easily. So 4 3/16 by 8 1/2. Oh, that was not 8 1/2. It's not big enough, so I'm going to cut this as 7 7/8. So that is slider 2. Let's do slider 1 here. So again, I'm going to have to go lengthways. 4 3/16 by 8 1/2. So that is slider 1, that is slider 2. Have I got enough? Not quite. So let's grab these ones. So now we're going to need 4 of those flaps. So I'm going to bring 2 pieces in at the same time, and we're going to cut them at 6 3/4 by 4 3/16. So that's all of our cutting done. So let's put the cutting board to the side. Okay, so OT on the cutting guide means on top. So I've got my 5 3/4 on top. I'm going to score it 1/2 inch and 3/4. Then it tells me R. R means to rotate it around. And you're just going to repeat it on the other side then. 1/2 and 3/4. Okay, so that's how my cutting guides usually work. Score with 5 3/4 on top at 1/2 and 3/4. Rotate, then 1/2 and 3/4 again. Then we've got slider 1. So score with the 8 1/2 on top at 2 and 2 1/4. So this 2 inch bit here is our flap. So I'm going to take my corner rounder, and mine's got 3 sizes, so I've gone for the large one. But then when I come to the paper, I'll drop down to the medium one. And then slider 2, 7 7/8 on top at 1 1/2 and 1 5/8. So that's just the next one along. So it's just a thin one that time. And again, we're going to cord around it. Now, I did say we needed 4 of these. I only need 2. 4 is for later on. So I'm going to keep the 2 of these for later on. That's for the flip books. I only need 2 this time. So I'm going to score it at 1/2 inch. So if you have cut 4, don't panic. They will be used later on. Okay. So the first thing we're going to work on is the pouch itself. So I've got some of my strong tape again, and I place my tape in between the edge of my cardstock and my 1/2 inch score line. So you're not going to touch your score line, just down the middle. Okay. And you're going to fold and back, like so, and fold. These 2 back as well. So you've created that shape. So that'll then just stick down onto your book, allowing some space to put our sliders in. So start with slider 1. This is the one with the large 2-inch also tab on the top. We're going to make it into a U shape, like so. And the other one, this has only got that small thin one. And you'll see how they then slide there. You could just finish there, but because I want more photo spaces, adding this one extra flap multiplies your photo spaces quite a bit. So I'm just going to take it off, and I fold it over like that. So I tuck that inside, hold it all together, lift it up, and then fold it back down. That way, everything is nice straight and it's not going to catch inside here. If I made it, stuck it on by lining up the corners, what I'd find is it sort of catches inside there. So by doing it this way, so I've just folded it back. So I've got a nice sharp fold here. Flip it over. I slide it in till this catches inside there. I can line up the sides, hold it down, lift this top one up, and fold it down. And that is your 2 sliders done. So the one with a 1/4 inch is the one that slides into the top. And the reason then this has an 1/8 less is it rests on top, like so. So they're not competing to the same space inside. So we can bring back our book. And let's take the sliders out. I'm going to expose just a tiny bit of the tape there. So it's bottom there. And I'm going to fold it flat. So you've got your score line there as well. So you can see, it just helps you to line it up a bit better rather than try to work with a deep pocket. So now I've lined up this corner. Now remember, there's no adhesive on this yet because I haven't exposed it. I'm gently just taking that out now, keeping everything in place. And there we go. Then we can fold this back. And we're going to do the same this side, so we're going to make it flat. Expose a little bit. And make sure you're not going over that score line you made on the base page. Because if you do, it's not going to fold. It's going to catch as you open it. There we go. And it folds up. Let's put the 2-inch one in there, the 1/4 inch one, and that one. So now we can just decorate it. Now I've decided to use this paper all across here, and we're going to use some reds for the flaps. So my thing, what makes a Paul project, is maximizing paper. So we're going to cut this at 6 inches tall and 4 across. So again, both pieces on my 8x8 page. I'm just going to grab I always seem to lose my applicator. I don't know why, they tend to just roll off. Yep, he's hidden from me again. I'm sure he'll pop up later on once I finish, but for now then, let's just take my setting. I'm just getting rid of the white core from my cutting. And a 6x4 will fit on the front of all 4 of these pages. So we're just going to start with number 1 on our pouch. And stick it down. So careful now, because it is raised and there's nothing holding in the middle. So just be gentle. And then, again, as I said, I've got a piece ready for the next part. I'm going to use the red from here. Our flap is 2 inches, which means I'm going to go down 1/4 inch to 1 3/4. And at 4 inches again. And this piece then is going to come for the flap next door. Now I curve this with my large one, so this time I'm going to go to my medium. Oh, here's the applicator right in front of me. So let's just do that. And I'm going to glue this. Now, I did say that I'd tell you a different way of closing this. In my original, in this one, I'm going to use some string. Alternatively, what you could do here is place a magnet there and there. Just make sure you do it before you glue things down. And then when you slide it in, it'll just clip into place. So you could use magnets. Right. Let's just curve that ready before I go on. Now, the rest of these flaps, I'm not going to do yet because I'm going to use, well, I'm going to see if I've got some scraps from the other pages that I can use then to cover this, because I know these two from that one sheet is going to do that. Although I may just use a third sheet of this one to do all the insides. So we'll see how it goes. So that is page 1 done. Just a bit more mat and layers to go. So I'm going to reset and we'll move on to page 2. So let's bring the cutting guide back in, and page 2, here we go. It's just going to be a deep pocket, so you can just drop in lots of photos. And of course, if you wanted to, you could just do 4 of these pouches. It would look really nice as well. So for page 2, we need one which is 5.5 by 5 3/4. So it'll almost look like a square. So you need to be careful when you come to your scoring. And then a flap. I'm going to use one of those ones I used wrong earlier. A flap which is 4 1/4 by 2 3/4. So that's all you need for this page. Let's bring the scoreboard back in. So the pouch with my 5 3/4 along the top, so make sure you've got the right one. We're going to score at 1/2 3/4. Rotate, then 1/2 3/4. And then with the 5.5 on the top, 1/2 3/4. And with the flap, with the 2 3/4 on top, 1/2 3/4. Not 1/2 3/4. It's 2 2 1/4. Oh, do you know what? It's exactly the same, thank goodness. So if you did do 1/2 3/4, it'd be the same. I think the only reason I did that was you definitely get a 2-inch flap if you do it the other way. Okay. Again, let's keep all my flaps the same. So just corner rounded. And fold them into that U shape. So the flap is done. So the more complicated piece this time is our pocket, but even that's not complicated. I'm going to take my tape down that 1/2 inch bit there and stop before I get to the score lines. No need to go beyond because we're going to be cutting them off. You're just wasting your tape. And over the course of an entire project, that's quite a bit of tape you're losing. And then we're going to snip off the corners. So I'm going to come at a 45-degree angle towards my square. So you can see where I am. I'm going to cut away that square. Like so. And continue my 45-degree angle. But that is the angle I had. I'm just going to make it a bit sharper. Then when I come to fold them, they're not going to overlap and cause extra bulk. So come towards your square, cut that central square away, a sharper than 45, and cut away. So cutting that shape out. And then it's a case of just gentle burnishes again. You don't need the sharp one. And those two. So this one comes together a lot quicker than the slider one. So we've done, there's page 1. So this is page 2. So that's the bottom. So let's take off the adhesive. And again, I'm going to fold it so that it's flat. I'm going to turn it upside down just because I find it easier to look like this. And I'm going to line it on the bottom of page 2. And then I can push it up to be deep then, like so. Then I'm just going to expose a little bit on the bottom of each. Now this is where you're going to train your card to be in the right place. So I want it in line with the black at a nice sharp 90-degree angle. Now none of the other part is exposed, so I can move it freely and just guiding that bit in. It's just a bit trickier because we've got that depth. And you're just working it. And the same then on the other side. Making sure here you don't go over that score line. There we go. I'm just going to take my ball folder and I'm going to make sure it's touching. If your ball folder is too big, just grab your ruler and press it down. Didn't quite get it in here. There we go. And then let's move that, put a slider back in. It's just the flap then on top. If you remember, we already had the papers cut from our previous page. Now again, before you stick down these, make sure you know what closures you're going to be using, because if you're using closure you've got to stick something under your paper, you need to do it before this bit. Oh, and talk about before, I need to cut this, don't I? So our pocket now is 5 3/4. So I'm going to cut this at 5. It's not 5. It's 4 3/4. I'm going to cut this at 4 1/2. Go. And ink those as well. So then this slides inside and covers that join there. And because we've cut it from the same piece, you'll see that the pattern continues properly. And again, we'll come back and do the insides later on once we've done everything else and we can see if we've got some scraps we can use. So there is the left hand side already done, and you can see how it's going to come together. So let's put it aside and let's get going with part 3. So page 3 now is going to be a little flip book. So you open up the flap and you just have lots and lots of 6x4 photo placements. So let's cut. This is where I was thinking earlier, 6 pages at 4 1/4 by 6 3/4. If on my guillotine, I could cut all three at the same time, but with my trimmer, I can do 2. So 4 1/4 by 6 3/4. There's 2 done. By 6 3/4. And let's do the 6 3/4. And 4 1/4. So now we've got 6 pieces. And a flap, which is 4 1/4 by 2 3/4. Oh, which is, that already is. So I must have cut that for another element earlier. So this is one of the quicker ones. Let's do the flap first then. So with the flap, the short edge, the 2 3/4 on top are 2 and 2 3/4. And let's just corner around her. So the whole thing ties together. So all these pages are exactly the same. We are going to score them, and you can score it either 6 1/4 or at 1/2 inch. So I'm going to go for 6 1/4. Because the reason being, sorry, 6 1/4. Yeah, okay. I've cut some of them at 6 1/2. That's 6 1/4 instead of 6 1/2. So by doing 6 1/4, those 2 shorter ones I did. I don't know why were you screaming at me when I was cutting. Should be okay then. Did you spot me cutting at 6 1/4 instead of 6 1/2? Sorry, 6 1/2 instead of 6 3/4. So that's one of the shorter ones. What did I say just now? This is one of the easier ones. And it's the one I've mixed best up. And so those 3 are okay. I'll just check. I think I've scored that one in the wrong place. Yes, 6 1/4. How have I messed this one up so bad? Here we are. Follow the cutting guide, not me, is it? Here we go. And then these ones are the ones I cut a bit too short. Am I going to be able to get the tape on the edge? Look, I've got a little bit exposed. And there we are. Ooh, I think I rescued it. So do as I say here, not as I've just done. Okay. Now for these flat pages, we do need to burnish really well. So we're going to press it down, flip it over, and I'm pressing quite hard on it. This is where my Teflon tool comes in handy, because if I was to do this with a plastic one, I would get some nice silver marks. The Teflon tool doesn't. So you want to get it as flat as you can. So you're going to fold it from both sides. And the last one. So all these hopefully now are nice and flat. And what I'm going to do is bring in my book, and I'm going to take one of the pages. I'm going to line up along the top. Make sure you can still see your score line on the right. Take your time with the first one, because if this one's off, it's going to throw all of them off. So I've got my first flap now attached and adhered to the bottom. Now this will fit the 6x4 photos, so I'm not going to put any paper on the inside. If you wanted, if you got the journal cards, you could put some journal cards in. Put some journal cards on the front, on the bottom, but up to you. But I'm just going to leave them empty as spaces for your 6x4 photos. I'm going to take my flap and I'm just going to cut off the corner here just to reduce some of the bulk. Just a gentle burnish and a gentle burnish. Take off the tape, and I'm tucking my page into that bit there, like so, lining it up, and then that means I'm not going to bump into it. If I'd lined it up straight at the top of that page, chances are they both meet in exactly the same position. But because we've got the extra hinge, it wouldn't really matter. But that's just one way of making sure it doesn't. And now I'm lining up the top two corners of my pages and then sticking the bottom down. And again now, we're just going to keep building the pages on. Now, if your cardstock feels like it's getting thick, just put less pages in. Just put 4 or 5 of these in. And these are the 2 shorter ones I had. And one more. Now what you'll find at the moment is this piece is high and you've got this big bow. That's because there's no photos in there. As soon as you put the photos, it will bulk up and rise up to the same position as the flap. Yeah. So you've got a thick end here, very thin there, but as soon as the photos are in, this will rise. And then it's just a case of decorating. So we're going to do the same as we did earlier for maximising the papers. So we're going to cut it at 6 inches tall. And this one was 2. What was it, 2 or 2 1/4? Yeah, the flap is 2, so we need this at 1 3/4. And then just cut 4. So these are my 2 flaps. And my 6x4s. And the great thing about the Graphic 45 pages, the back will always coordinate with the front. So I could have done that and then gone back to this, that would be a nice way to do it as well. But I like continuation. So let me just, okay, so I'm only going to decorate the first page of my flip book. Make sure the wording is the right way up. Like that. And medium one this time. And that then is page 3, done with lots of photo spaces. So you could just do 4 lots of this and you would have a really, well, not really big book, but a book with lots and lots of spaces for photos. And there we go. Page 3 is done. And we just have one more to go. That's the slide because I haven't put the closure in yet. So we've got these 2 pieces for decorating in a second. So let's just reset and get on with page 4. So for the final page, we're going to make a little folio baked. There's a 6x4 journal card and mock-up, just show that they fit in there. So you may see something different to what I usually do. Usually my top and bottom, when I make this sort of page, are the same size. But I've decided to keep these 2 matching and all the top ones the same size. And I have noticed I have gone to put the measurements for the second flap. And because I did change my mind from doing this. So flap 1, you'll need 1 of these. It will be right in your cutting guide. So we're going to do it at 4 1/4 by 2 3/4. Now I'm going to corner around just so I know this is my piece that I actually need it. Then the next one, let me just double check the measurement. Oh. That's the slider. So it's same as the slider. So slider's 1 1/2. So 1 1/2 to 2 1/4. So it's going to be 2 1/4 by 4 1/4. And just so I know this is an actual piece, not a scrap, corner round. And then I do need 2 pieces, which are 4 1/4. That's too short. Here we go. 4 1/4 by 1 3/4. That's 1 1/2. Let's put them over there. 4 1/4 by 1 3/4. That's the piece I need. Right, I'm going to put these scraps out of the way so I'm not mixing them up with my actual pieces. And bringing back my scoreboard. And all of these now are going to be 1/2 and 3/4 with the 4 1/4 down the side. So the shorter edges at the top. And I'm going to pour around this now. And the last one. And I can move my scoreboard out the way. Now I'll tape onto each of these. So basically this is just 4 flaps like we've just done on the other pages. So 1 and 2. So just doing that U shape for each of them. And the last one. So let's bring in our book, because these go straight onto our page. Oh, I did forget. Let's just cut off the corners just to reduce some bulk. And again, I'm going to fold it flat just so I can get it in the right place. And then make it 3D. And cut off the corners for the bulk. And I find it easier just to turn my album upside down so I can see the corners. And then these two you can measure if you want the center, or you can just do like I do, just guesstimate it. There's one, and oh, that's quite far off with me. Take it off before it sticks. Lucky I didn't burnish it down. Let's have a look. That's better. And there we go. So that then is our final page done. So let's just ink up. So this 6x4 one. Is just going to go on the bottom. And the top flap. So that's almost done. So now I'm going to grab that third page from my pack. I just spotted it. First cut all the other pieces out. So because everything is that regular size, I'm just going to cut my 4 inches, and I've got non-directional paper, which makes it even easier. I know I need 4 pieces for here, And they're all going to be 1 3/4. Leaving me with a 1-inch strip, which I can then cut down to 3/4 for the flap there. So I've got 4 pieces for my top flaps. Then my bottom flap of my folio here was a 1 1/2, so I want it at 1 1/4. So 1 1/4, and I'll need one on the other side as well. And I need two, for my slider one. 1 1/4, and I need another 3/4. Another 3/4 for my bumper and the backs of my bumpers. There we go. So all these now need 2 corners rounded. Now, because it's non-directional, it's taken a bit of thinking out of it for me. From the bumper, yeah. So these are my page 4 bottom flaps. These are my page 1 slider, the bottom slider. And these are the backs of all those top flaps. Ooh, but one of them I'm going to have with the yellow side up. So let's make sure that one, that's for the deep pouch. Okay. For them. So this might take me a bit of time just to ink. I'll try to be as fast as I can. 1. And these are the filler ones. So I'm still undecided what I want to do with that one. I'm going to have to wait to see how it looks. Do I want the honey paper? Oh, I could do all the backs in the honey, couldn't I? If I thought sooner. But probably, yeah, it would be upside down now. And the 4 bumpers. So remember, these are just 3/4 of an inch, so you could have used some scraps from some of the other pages from the cover. I'll probably use those for my closures. And the last one. Okay. So let's start on page 4, seeing as that's where we left off. So these are my bumper ones. And the backs. And then the top. And these thin ones with the bottom. So that's page 4. Page 3, I just need that piece there. Now, this is what I was saying about page. Do I want that, or is it just going to look strange if that's different to all the others? Let's stick to the same. And so there's all 4 of the pages done. Just this slider left to go. And the back of that slider. There we go. Let's just slide that in. And there we have all of the inside done. Now the only thing I need to do now is my closures. Now they take a little bit of time. So I'll probably do that off camera now, because you could really do whatever you want. But what I'd recommend, I've got a playlist in my YouTube channel called Closure Album. It's made with the Graphic 45 Farmhouse papers. And in that, I show you how to make closures. It's focused on how to put closures together. So the one I'd use here is a folio closure, which is using circles with a hole in it. So I've doubled it up. I put a brad through. I put one there and one there. And then our string wraps around and it pulls the 2 sliders together. So you just pull it tight and you can tie them together. And because I've done it there, I would do it here as well, just to balance it out. And also, that's the best one for here as well, a folio closure. So again, there'd be 2 circles here and here, pulling it all closed. You could do the same then here with the folio there and there. Or what I might do this time is some swivel closures. So they're with the brad and they just swivel round so that it pops up. And I said videos on how to make these are in my channel already, because I take you through them slowly rather than rush it here. So yeah, have a look at the closure album on what to do there. Just be aware that when you put your closures in exactly the same space when they pop close, you may have them bumping into each other. So just be aware of extra thickness there. that's why maybe magnets would be good there, so it'd be flat folio there, so you're not getting bumping, but it's up to you. Now in my original, I did put some pockets here, and I didn't like it in the end, so I'm not going to this time, because it caused too much thickness and for the book itself to try and push itself open. But what I am going to do is I'm going to put some magnets just to help the book to close into the right position. So where's the best put magnets up? Here. So top right of this page. Oh, I don't want to take that off yet. And there. So when I close my book, I'm going to sort of put it in the place I want it to go to. It hasn't stuck. So what I'll do is, because normally you'd be able to get your finger in, but you can't, so I'm going to put some double-sided tape on top. Can't get, it's typical when you're on camera, you can't get it off. There we are. Right, so I'm going to try and line up these corners exactly where I want the magnet to bring them to. And again, it hasn't. And it still hasn't. This is just typical. Let's put a new piece on. Right, let's pray this time. There we go. Oh, the problem is I've got to do it again on the bottom now. So let's get another magnet. Maybe if I make it longer this time. Oh, that way. Let's hope I'm lucky this time with some longer paper. So that top one is going to clip in place for me. That's where I want it. Yes. First time that time. So now my paper will magnetize to the right position, or my pages will magnetize to there. And let's just cover it up. So let's tie in the red and these. And again, 6x4. Zinc the backs. And we can take this paper. So even though I stuck it down, I still put tape over the top because that just smooths over the harsh edge of the magnet. And then one more piece. So you can see how the measurements for this have been worked out just to make the most out of my 8x8 papers and still fit 6x4 photographs. I gotta say I was really pleased with how this turned out, and I gotta say thank you to Cal Summers again for the idea with the soft spine. That really did help me out because my original method just wasn't working and I got frustrated. But this was exactly what I needed. So there we go, our soft spine book, and it won't stay until I've got my closures in, of course. tying up. Oh, and on my original, I did put some extra paper on the edges, but because this is all black and the black actually works here, I haven't. But you've got some more scraps, and from your front cover, you just got to cut that in half and it actually fits there. In fact, I might do that because that black and white dots does actually work there, doesn't it? And there we go. Now I've got some time now to decorate the front. I'll have a look at, I've got some journal cards. There's papers here where I've got some borders and things which I could now go ahead and decorate the front of my book, but I don't think, because that paper is so nice, it doesn't need too much. Just maybe a nice little border on that one. Could look nice. Bring in some red. Actually, I haven't decided yet, but what I have done is shown you how to make a lovely little album. Oh, I do need to sort out my ribbon ends as well. A lovely little album with plenty of spaces for your 6x4 photos. I think it really does express me, like the Graphic 45 team was asked to do. It's economical papers with the paper measurements. It fits 6x4, it fits regular photos, and yeah, very happy with it. So thank you for watching, and keep an eye out for more of my Graphic 45 Grand Ambassador projects coming up this year. So see you all again soon.